City Field is as beautiful could be. But Shea Stadium, I mean, that's where some of the greatest parts of my life happened. So, but at Shea Stadium, I used to always leave the booth, 7:10 game. At 6:30, there was a little back entrance on the floor that we were on, the 5th floor. And I could go back and I could watch all the fans coming up those escalators that ran for days. I don't know how I would have vertigo on it. But then looking at all the fans coming, and it was such an inspirational thing to happen before you would go on air, because you're really seeing the people that you're talking to, not tonight as they come to the game, but tomorrow when they're not at the game. So that's one of the things I miss about Shea as an announcer. But now, doing what I do now, I see how resilient you guys are. I don't know how you do it. As Keith calls them, you love your Metsies, and I just think it's inspiring because I think sometimes you'll watch certain teams or even certain players. You're like, boy, they've kind of given up on the season, and you guys never do. I don't know how you do it. I really don't, but I'm impressed by it every single time. So thanks for coming. I think this QBC thing is a fantastic idea. The rest of the country, when I travel, people are always like, you work for the New York market. I don't know, it's not the New York market to me. It's Queens. Queens is what it's all about with the Mets. So I played for the Mets in the organization for 11 years. I've now this will be my 9th year broadcasting for the team, so my 20th year. Who knew my address is going to be Queens that long? That's hilarious. Great.
Ron, going way back, when did you first know that you might be a professional athlete?
That's a great question, because I think there's a lot of young guys here, right, that you probably feel from the second you start playing, if you're a good player, you start to have those dreams, But for most kids, you have those dreams, but they seem like pipe dreams. You don't think they're ever going to happen. But I think really the first time it happened for me is I really wasn't until I was in college. I'd always been a good player, but between my freshman and sophomore year, I went to Yale young. I went from 5'10" and a half to 6'3" in a matter of 4 or 5 months. So everything I was doing was exponentially better. I was running faster, throwing harder, hitting the ball further. So it wasn't really until I had that late growth spurt, and then people started saying, whoa, he's major league material, that I started to think, boy, this would be fun. Maybe I could get drafted. Maybe I could try to make my mark. But never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would play that long.
Now, May 21st, 1981, you pitched for Yale against St. John's and Frank Viola. 11 innings of no-hit ball, lost the no-hitter in the game in the 12th on a loop and a double steal. Probably the most famous game in college baseball history, immortalized by Roger Angel in a piece which, if you haven't read, please do. It's just astonishing. My question about that game that jumped out at me is your pitch count had to be in the 170s or so.
Yeah, 177.
Wow.
Collegiate abuse. The short story written by Roger Angel, who is, of course, the most famous writer for the New Yorker. It's called Web of the Game. If you ever have an afternoon and you're just trying to be nostalgic, and it has nothing to do with me, read this piece. It'll be one of the greatest things you've ever read. It's just, it ties the game, myself, Frank Viola, Yale, St. John's with Smokey Joe Wood, who pitched a famous 1-0 game against Walter Johnson. About the game, I find it very funny. The best game I ever pitched, I lost. I don't know what that says about me. But what was great about it is that St. John's is a powerhouse. There are mostly kids from the New York area. Guys I played with ended up being doctors, scientists, artists, film directors. It was at Yale. They were, at the last count, there were about 300,000 people there, but they're like my parents and a few other people. And we had heard, and rightfully so, just St. John's was unbeatable. I think that year they might have been 55-10. John Franco, who was also on that staff, was I think 11-0. Frank Viola was 9-0. Their cleanup hitter hit .570 for the season. So we were just really trying not to get embarrassed. But the closer we got to the game, the more the pressure was kind of ratcheted up. There were 40 scouts there. It was going to be my last collegiate game. And, something clicks in an athlete. I wouldn't even say it's the most attractive thing. It's probably the least attractive thing. But you get a little mean and you get angry. And I got sick of hearing how great they were. And all of that going into that game probably led to whatever performance I had, because I was like, well, I go to Yale, but I'm not the Ivy covered kid. I'm from Worcester, Mass. All the kids I grew up with are firefighters and police officers. Blue collar towns you're ever going to get. So I was going to take whatever blue collar I had against St. John's blue collar. And it worked out all right until the 12th.
Now, in the 12th, Steve Scappa at St. John's led off with a blue. Do you remember that at-bat and what happened to it?
Yeah, I vaguely remember the at-bat, only because he was there, Lenny Dykstra, if they say. And keeping him off the bases was the key. And, when he let off the inning with a hit, I was like, okay, that's fine. But you just knew that the game was such a strange game that you knew that he was going to probably run over some people to just try to score a run, which he eventually did. What I find ironic now, and I don't know if he's here, he might be here, I don't know what he does for his main living, but I know he has a website where he watches games, he loves the game, and he criticizes announcers when they make mistakes. So I made it on his website a few times because I made many mistakes, but he's getting the last laugh with it.
You were mentioning growing up in Worcester, and that brought up a question for me. I learned who you were with the '84 Mets, and it seemed like everybody was writing the same story about you. That you were a Yaley, dual major in French and Southeast Asian history, you speak French and Chinese. Now, I would imagine that based on that, a lot of people made some inaccurate assumptions about your background, where you came from, where you actually came from very modest means, and both your parents worked very hard to let you work very hard. Well, how did you deal with that? Was that the misconceptions? Was that frustrating? How did you approach it?
Well, I don't know. Have you ever been to an event where someone reads your biography? Like they're either honoring you or you've done beautiful charitable work, and then they introduce you and they talk about you, and you're like, who are they talking about? Is that me? So all of those things are true, and I think that machine that kind of runs a ball club, I think it's a very important thing that anything that's positive, they want to put out there. What made it difficult for me is not with fans. I think they found that cool. I'm sure Yale thought that was the greatest free advertising they had in a long time. But it made it tough for my teammates. So I got a lot of snide remarks, a lot of, boy, this guy might think he's too good for us kind of attitude. And it took me a while to whittle away at that. And because baseball's I call it the most unusual scrum you'll ever be in. When I went to Yale, you go from being the greatest student in your class to everybody was the greatest student in your class. And when you go to professional baseball, it's the same. You were the greatest player probably in your neighborhood. And then you meet 600 guys, and they were all the greatest players in their neighborhood. So they're fighting tooth and nail for your position. They're kind of fighting for your position. And that scrum spits out guys that are able to last or endure some of that stuff. So I took a lot of, my first day in the big leagues, I was sitting in my locker. Tom Seaver came by with the New York Times crossword puzzle. He threw it in my lap. He said, "I need this finished, kid." I had never done the New York Times crossword puzzle. Luckily, a few people that do them. It was a Monday, so I got thrown up, you know. And but those are the kind of things that they were just testing me to see if I were, you know, the PR machine presents you as a certain person, and then teammates start to see that, oh, that's off the field, on the field, you're one of us. So that was the key.
You were drafted by the Rangers. You started in Double-A, then were traded to Mets and went to Triple-A, and then were in the big leagues. How did moving that quickly affect you as a pitcher?
Great question, because all I hear about now when I'm sitting in the booth is this kid's not coming up this year. I know he's ready, but he's not coming up. I'm like, why? I'm watching. We need somebody. What was funny about that is in 1982, I drafted in 81 by the Texas Rangers in June. Number 1 pick for the Rangers. I go to spring training, I throw more innings than any pitcher on the staff. Don Zimmer calls me into his office on April Fool's Day. A little wary, and he says, "Kid, you were great. You're not going to start with us because we don't need a 5th start until April 22nd. I'll never forget that day. So you're going to make 3 starts in Oklahoma City. You're going to start against the Minnesota Twins in Texas in late April." So I got my Datsun Tweedy ZT top in Pompano Beach, Florida. I zoomed all the way to the minor league complex because I was sent down, which was in Plant City, Florida, which for some of you know, strawberry capital of the world. Not quite capital, but whatever. And when I got there, I went to the Holiday Inn where I was staying, and my red light on the phone was on. For you people that are my age, you know what that means. You have a message, right? It's not a cell phone. So I picked up the phone. I listened to my messages. It was from a man named Lou Gorman, who I had known for years when I was a schoolboy athlete, because he's from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, that area. So I called him back. I said, hi, Mr. Gorman, how are you? Thanks for calling. He says, how's things going, Ron? I said, they're fantastic. Thank you for asking. He goes, you don't know yet, do you? I said, what? You just been traded. And I go, well, why you call me? He goes, I'm with the Mets. We just traded for you. So even the Rangers didn't tell me until the Mets had told me I was traded. So I would say my first feeling was devastation, because when you're drafted number 1 by a team, you just feel, you know, I'm going to be here forever. I make my mark with this team. They nice enough to draft me. And remember, I just had that discussion with Don Zimmer. So I meet the press the next day, and I find out that Lee Mazzilli couldn't believe he was traded for 2 ordinary minor leaguers, and which was fine. And Lee and I are best friends for forever. But Frank Cashin comes up to me and says, young man, you are going to spend the entire year in Triple-A. That's how we do it here with the Mets. It's like, wait a minute, I was just told that this started late April. I get it. So I watched the Mets play in 82, one of those unforgettable seasons. And I was thinking to myself, in Triple-A, I should be in the major leagues. But you know what? The Mets were right. I wasn't ready. And I came up the next year, and I was able to stay up for good. And it was an amazing experience. But you just don't know what events will transpire in your life that are just game-changing. And being traded and wearing the orange and blue changed my life.
Let me ask you about that view. You knew your baseball history. You had been a fan growing up. So September 6, 1983, here's the first three hitters. Joe Morgan, Pete Rose, and Mike Schmidt. 53 years in the big leagues, more than 7,300 hits between them. What was it like standing on the mound during the national anthem knowing that was coming?
Well, extreme hubris, bring it on. I don't care. You know, I mean, that's how you feel when you're 22, 23 years old. It's like, you know, I was waiting for this. This is the right time. I don't care who's up and down. And those are the silly things you think about when you're 22 or 23 years old. I think if you got out of your body experience, you would probably crumble when you see those kind of hitters. But I remember, really the only thing I remember from that game is that standing on the mound, hearing the national anthem, I didn't have any nerves. But I remember in '83, I don't know how many people were at the game, it's just someone could find out. It wasn't 44,000, I'll tell you that. But I remember seeing my parents and my brothers, and that really made it incredibly special because I just believe, it could be wrong, so it's not everyone's, it's not what happens to everyone, it's not everyone's experience. But it really takes a village of people to get to the major leagues. It takes your parents, whether they're driving, coaching, coddling, hugging, whatever it takes. It takes all those coaches and people around you. It takes your friends who sometimes, I don't know, maybe push their dreams aside to make sure you get yours. It's an incredibly humbling experience when you finally get there and you just realize like your life just goes around your head so quickly and you really can't believe that how many people it took to get you to this place. Hardest part about that is you can't let them down. So I think you better figure it out. That's the pressure part of it, but that's fine too.
For the record, he struck out Morgan, struck out Rose, and got Schmidt and ground out. It's not too bad. Rod, we live in, I think what for fans is the golden age between statistics, scouting reports, video of anything you want. I think fans who want to understand the game have the best tools they've ever had for doing so. But at the same time, it seems to me there are limits to that. What are the aspects of being a pro ball player that even the best educated fans have trouble understanding?
Great question. Great question, by the way. It's an amazing experience. That's unlike. I've never read. You know, I've read books, whether it's Ball 4 or whatever, that describe some of the antics that happen. Jeff Perlman wrote a book about the Mets, right? About you guys know it, right? Got a lot of the stuff right, by the way. But I think the thing that's hard to describe is that occasionally you play on championship teams, and I played on a lot of teams that, by an eyelash, weren't championship teams. But what happens during the course of that summer that makes you mesh and become a family is something that you can't write about, you can't talk about, you can't express it to anyone. It's so special and remarkable. When a team is not very good, guys on third with one out, you're supposed to get him in, right? On bad teams, the guy doesn't get him in, the guys on the bench are like, how can he not get him in? Come on, it stinks. All year we're going to watch this. And on good teams, when the guy doesn't get him in, the guys on the bench are like, don't worry, I'll pick you up. We got it. I got it. Don't worry. And when you get in that kind of situation, everyone's pulling on the same rope. Everyone, I'm going to use this word, it sounds weird because I'm a ball player, there's such an unbelievable love and trust for each other. That's when, you know, this whole thing has been about drugs, right? PEDs, whatever. Well, the drug of winning and winning the championship and that exhilaration that happens, if they had that drug, we'd all be in trouble. Because it is most exhilarating. I just saw, I went to a Ranger game recently. recently with Keith Hernandez and Eddie Lynch, and we laughed for about 6 hours, which is hard to do. But it was like we were 25 to 30 years old again, telling the stories and you know, do you remember when you nicked your leg in July and you couldn't play the next day, but you had to throw that party and it was great because you played all, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just, it's something that I'll always have. It's the greatest gift from those championship teams in the '86 team is that I got my family in Mass and I had my family that I played with.
Speaking of teammates, this is a story that always fascinated me. In the beginning of October 1985, you started the game against John Tudor, which the Mets won 1-0 at 11 when Straw hit the clock. And you've talked about how afterward Ray Knight came up to you and said, "Welcome to the club." Now, in '84, you won 12 games, and you were finishing up a really terrific season in '85. And yet he said, "Welcome to the club." What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I was like, I thought I was already in the club. What happened in that game was the bottom part of it is that with 3 games down, we're going to a 3-game series with St. Louis. Tudor's pitching the first night. Everyone was all over Davey for not starting Dwight. Dwight would go 24 and 4 that year. His explanation is that we got to win all 3. Darling wins tonight, Gooden wins tomorrow, we got him on the ropes. So he stuck with me, which was unbelievable. So lucky enough, we ended up winning that game. Straw hit the clock at 9:54, I always remember that day. And what was remarkable, he came in the clubhouse after the game, and Ray Knight tells you a lot about the kind of winner he was. He comes up, and you guys probably memory of Ray is the '86 World Series and the punch. But my memory of him is that after that game, he was a bear of a man, and he gave me the biggest hug, and he had tears just flowing down his face, and that's the first time I'd ever seen that. But he was so intense and so all about winning that that game brought him to tears. So it was an amazing clubhouse atmosphere. Everyone was really high and excited, you know, but also we got two more games to play. And I remember the next day at the ballpark, Jay Horowitz, PR man for the Mets, more famous now, came up to me and said the press wants to speak to you before batting practice. And I said, why? That had never ever happened in my career. And they said that they just want to talk to you. So there's 30 reporters around me. The first question was how does it feel to be in the major leagues? I was like, again, I thought I was already in. But I think what that game signified for my teammates, for the organization, I guess for myself, that I made it, that I can make a living playing this game. I'm one of the more elite players in this game, and more importantly, that my players can trust on me in a big game. So it's, again, you know, those moments when you're in the middle of them, it's really hard to understand them or enjoy them. But when you get past it a little bit, then it starts to make sense.
Now, in the '86 series, you pitched extremely well in Game 1, and then won Game 4 in Fenway. Now, you had grown up a Red Sox fan, the Impossible Dream Red Sox in '67. How long does it take for childhood fandom to disappear when you become a pro?
Yeah, it didn't take any time, and I'll tell you why. My high school year, my junior year, I was invited to play at an all-star game in Fenway Park. I couldn't play it for some reason. Hopefully it was not the prom or something. I think there was a more important reason, but I couldn't play, and one of the scouts came up to me and said, congratulations for getting elected to the all-star game at Fenway Park. He said, but I heard you're probably going to Yale. I said, yeah. He goes, well, that's good, because you know, you'll never be a big league player. And so I remember that before the series started. And it was, I remember I told that story to someone from the Red Sox contacted me because they wanted to fire the scout. I didn't say his name. I never did. I never have. But Massachusetts there. We're all screaming, dropping the R in my last name, the whole thing. And my warm-up is the worst warm-up I've ever had. Before that game, and worst since that game. I could have a better warm-up today. And it was just nerves. It was really just nerves. And it's about 5 minutes left. I said about, that's it. And he goes, don't you want to work through this? I said, I'm not working through this. I'm nervous. Let's just get in the dugout, figure out what's going on, and just shake it off. It'll be fine. I said, I'm warmed up. I've been warmed up since April for this. So as I'm walking across the field, I'm a little late. The national anthem starts. So I'm standing next to Mel. We take off our caps. And you're going to walk in from right field all the way to the dugout. And I hear a psst, psst. And I look over. I had forgotten my dad was in the National Guard. I was holding the flag that night. So I kind of took 2 steps to my right, kind of saddled up next to him, and he talked the game. So everything went away. All the nerves. It's like he taught me how to play, he taught me how to pitch, taught me how to throw. He's in the ballpark, it's going to be easy. And I shut him out. So it was an amazing experience for anyone. And then in Game 7, I got knocked out in the 4th. Richie Gedman took me deep. Richie Gedman was a childhood friend from Worcester. We competed against each other. Richie Gedman played on the same team as J.P. Machardi, who was one of your assistant general managers. He took me deep over Strawberry's glove, and Danny made the correct move. Although I hadn't given up a run until that time. That was the 7th game of the World Series. There's no, that's how it goes. And Sid Fernandez, who knew it was going to be that line, who was the best pitcher in the 7th game. And he was fantastic, and the rest is history. But, I hear a lot of people who are not Met fans when I travel. Like, you guys got lucky in Houston. But, you guys got lucky in the World Series. You guys followed that team. Nothing lucky about any of you. It was just, that team was the only team I've ever played on. Played 27 hours. I'm talking about every game. There wasn't one game where people go, you know what? You nailed it. 6-2, 9th inning, no chance. The team was so beautifully obnoxious that it just would not say no, even though they were behind, and that's why that 6th game happened. I'll believe it for as long as I live.
You did an interview once with Deadspin and said something I found fascinating. You're an athlete your whole life, so you always trick yourself into believing that you're one start away, one at bat away from getting it fixed again. And, this has always struck me as something that's tragic about pro athletes, that, to make it to the top of your profession, you have to be wired in a way that then stops you from knowing the calendar is moving. Now, you accepted that and moved on, but we all read lots of stories of athletes who struggle to do that. What was different for you, and what did you need to move to the next chapter?
I think that there's almost a delusional part of yourself when you're an athlete, because you've got to be so wired that there's an infallibility about you. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not going to get beat. If you beat me, I'm lucky today. It's some confidence that maybe CEOs of big corporations maybe have the same kind of feeling. I don't know. It's not that attractive. I'm telling you that right now. I'm sure my family, through those 400, 500 starts that I made, probably didn't appreciate the hootiness on game day, but it's part of how it goes. The Deadspin article was interesting. I wrote it because they were asking how you knew you were done. Very few athletes know when they're done. That's why most of them are released, traded, fired, whatever at the end. is how I break out. But how I got released is I was called into Tony La Russa's office, and he said, we have this young left-hander, Doug Johns, that we need to make a start. And I'm like, Doug Johns? He's better than me? You gotta be kidding me. So that's your feeling. And he said, so but we want you to stay with the team. They really respected me. So they said, go on the DL and stay with the ball club. I said, well, I'm not going to go on the disabled list. I've never been on it. As you Met fans know, I broke my thumb in '87, but there's no disabled list in September. So I'd never been on the disabled list. I thought that was kind of a nice crown to wear. And then second, I told Tony La Russa, I said, you could wish me happy birthday. It's my birthday today. So it's my 35th birthday when I got released by the A's. And I remember saying to myself, this is time. It's time for me to go. Again, before cell phones, so I was so excited to drive to my house in California. It's a half-hour away. Hopefully no one will get mad here. Went to a 7-Eleven, I bought Tall Boy Bud Light. And I said, I'm going to enjoy moon roof open, sun basking down. It's 5 o'clock. I haven't been home at 5 o'clock forever, 15 years. I get home, and I get in the house, and I said, hey, guys, kids were little. I said, I'm home. I'm not playing anymore. So my wife informs me she's going away to Monterey to play in a tennis tournament. Both my kids are going with my parents to Lake Tahoe, and they ended up on my birthday alone in my house in California. But it just tells you the story is that in a baseball life, you're so busy playing baseball, and everyone around you is so busy living life. And they were still living life, and I didn't have baseball anymore. So they eventually came home, and we tried to resume with trying to have a normal kind of life. I woke up the next day, and I was just so excited. I said, if no one's home, I'm going to go for a swim in the pool, I'm going to barbecue like a steak or whatever. And so I get up, go to get in the pool guy's there. I get in the house, the lady who cleans the house is in the house. One of the cabinets was wrong, so there were two guys fixing the cabinets. The guy that mows the grass is out mowing the grass and making noise with the leaf blower. I'm like, who are these people? What are they doing here? But it's a strange, you talk about getting betrayed by the calendar. Just what happens, at 35 years old, most all of us are done. And that's a hard thing to live by, and I think that a lot of guys are always looking for that same feeling, and we'll never have that same feeling. The closest I get to it is, you probably hear it in my voice occasionally, is when I'm watching one of those magical games, whether it's Santana's no-hitter or Beltron 2006, hitting a walk-off in the 17th off Madsen. Those games still get me fired up, and occasionally the hair on my arms will rise, but I'll never have that feeling again. So most guys are still chasing that kind of dragon. I leave it alone.
When you were working with Gary and Keith, it certainly seems like you all are out there having fun. What do you think makes you work so well as a trio?
I can honestly talk about that for probably 2 hours. It's very complicated, and it's not. I probably have, this is going to sound strange, I probably have more in common with Gary Cohen than Keith Hernandez. If you think about Gary's life and my life, we have a very similar life, other than he's talked about baseball, I played baseball. Plus no one's like Keith. So. But before we were going to do our first game, you have your IFB, it's called, your earpiece in. It's the first game we're going to do. I'm a little nervous. Honestly, when we do the opens, nervous every single time. This was a little more. The director says, or the producer says, hey guys, we're a minute out. I started to get really nervous. And Keith takes his earpiece off, puts the mic away, and he goes, listen to me. You do the pitching, I do the hitting, and I want to be funny 3 times a game. No lie. And he's serious. There's no smile, there's nothing. But in that simple phrase, the savant, Keith Hernandez, solved all the problems that happened in the 3-man booth. 3-man booth, the problem for all 3-man booths is the traffic. People talking over each other, like who's talking, what are they talking about? He changed it, that little phrase, 45 seconds before we went on air. Why we're great, I think Gary Cohen is the greatest captain you could ever have in a booth. When he first started, Gary's so good at what he does, and I don't think anyone else would do this, that he has had to pare down from his greatness to include us. Because see, unlike Keith and I, Gary can do the game by himself. He doesn't need us. We need him. And he's had to come back off his greatness of being able to call a game by himself. He's a wordsmith, he can do anything in the booth. But he includes us. And when we were first starting, Keith and he were having a little bit of their personalities are very opposite. So, yeah, a little problem. They went and talked it out. And ever since that day, there's a real, and I was talking about ball players, love and respect for everyone that's in the booth. And if you could, the game is great, but if they want a reality show, if they put us on in between innings, you guys would have fun. Because there's stuff that happens in between innings that should not happen in a broadcast booth. But it does, and it's hilarious. But I think what we try to do when we're really good, try to be like free-form jazz. Everyone's playing their instrument. There's a solo every once in a while, and we're just trying to listen to each other and react and go. That's what makes it so special, is that it's not about, I've got to do this today, I want to talk about that. I work in a lot of other booths. Guys come with lists. These are the 5 things I want to talk about tonight. I'm not talking about anything else, because I haven't prepared for anything else. We're just the opposite. Bring it on. What do you want to talk about now? I'll give you a little insight to how, it's just one example. And we do this stuff all the time, so if you really pay attention, it'll be fun. I think the year was 2009, 2006, magical, beautiful season. 2007, 8, heartache, right? Heartbreak, heartache. So 2009 was the first season that really wasn't a lot happening in the last 50 games. So Gary and I were having dinner on the road, and we said, listen, why don't we incorporate the names of the states, how they're brought into the Union, starting with Delaware, and going all the way to Hawaii is 50. I said, that sounds like a great idea, let's do it. So Delaware was easy. We were playing Pittsburgh that night. Ian Snell was from Pittsburgh. We talked about him, the line on the Shield. Delaware, done. So we're going through all of them. I would write it on the top of my scorecard, the state for that night. So the state that night was Arkansas, and we were playing, 2009 is the first year here? Yeah, so we were playing here. And Arkansas's up. I look at my book, there's 2 outs, 2 strikes, Frankie Rodriguez is pitching, and the game's going to be over on the next pitch. Screwed up. Arkansas's not coming out. During the game, we had been kidding Kevin Burkhardt, who, what a job he does, right? Great. We had been kidding Kevin Burkhardt that you either are a Springsteen fan or a Bon Jovi fan. You can't be both, right? Springsteen or Bon Jovi. And Kevin was trying to argue with us during the game. It became a running shtick through the whole game. So I see Arkansas, so the pitch. Here's the pitch, Gary says, foul ball. Reprieve for the governor. So I tap Gary, I went to Arkansas, and he's like, oh my God. So Rodriguez is about ready to pitch again. 2 strikes, we're going to definitely miss Arkansas. Pitch is fouled off the batter's foot, so it takes him a little time to get back in the box. So I go to Kevin, I said, Kevin, well, I guess this game is going to be known as the Bon Jovi-Springsteen debate, and we'll never know if that's really how it goes. Springsteen, Bon Jovi, you can't be both. And that's when Gary chirps in right before the pitch. He says, well, my favorite Springsteen song is Mary Queen of Arkansas. Here's the pitch, strike 3. And that was it. Those are the kind of things that happen in the booth.
That's some pretty good jazz, too. You've been a major league pitcher. You're now a much admired broadcaster who we hope will have you around for years to come. You've always been curious, though, about a huge number of things. What are some of the things that interest you that you haven't had a chance to engage with yet that might be part of some future act?
Great question. As far as, I think you guys have seen me a little bit on the Major League Baseball Network. I have a 5-year contract that I just signed with the Mets. Here 5 more years. So now I'm like you guys, in my lifetime, maybe one. So yeah, I have tons of interests. I like writing. That has been probably the thing. I'm writing a book right now. I don't think I can talk about it because someone who wears a bow tie will be mad. I really enjoy that. You know, my youngest son is a type 1 diabetic, so I've raised close to $1 million for diabetes. I like doing that. And I think that, you know, as I get older, you know, there's just I'm really satisfied by doing Mets games. Like I didn't know when I first started that I could do it for a long time, and the Mets have such a great history of announcers. But I don't know if it's you guys or the team or whatever it is, but it gets in your blood, you know? And it gets into everything that you do. And if they're really good, you want to ride the wave. And if they're not very good, I'm staying. I'm staying till they're good again. You know, it's a strange thing. I don't know how you guys pass it on to others, but you do. I think that for me, I can see eventually, hopefully, and I've done it a couple times now, and it's been a lot of fun. I think that once I'm finished, I would like to go teach again. You know, I'd like to go back I've done it a couple times already. Go back to university, go back to Yale if they'll have me, and teach. I think that's something I would love to do, and you know, I don't know what it would be by then. It'll be the sabermetrics of baseball or whatever. I don't know what it'll be, but that's maybe someplace I'm going to go and retire someplace warm. Those are the 2 things.
I think we maybe could sneak in just a couple of questions from the audience. What I'd like you to do is raise your hand. We're going to do this quick. John, why don't you start off? Just come up to the mic and ask if you would.
Jason, Ron, really admire you both as a pitcher and as a broadcaster. There's been almost 1,000 players in Mets history. There's been fewer than 3 dozen who have worn 3 or more uniform numbers. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about when you changed from number 44 to number 12 and then again to number 15. I don't even think they allow you to do that anymore as a ball player because there's merchandising and all that stuff involved. Why did you do it? Do you remember?
The number 44 I was given by the clubhouse manager, and he threw it at me when I got called up. I was sitting there, he said, kid, take this one. So I looked at it, I thought 44 is a great number, but if you know the history of the game, that's a hitter's number, it's not a pitcher's number. Although it was what David called a pretty good pitcher's number. I switched to 12 the next year because all the pitchers that were going to make the ball club wanted to wear lower numbers. Dwight was going to wear 16, yeah, 84, 83 is my first year. Dwight's going to wear 16. Aguilera's going to come up, who's wearing 15. And I had played quarterback in high school and at college, and I thought 12, what a great number to have in New York. You know, I know the history of the Jets, so, you know, I thought that was a great number. And the reason I switched to 15 was just a total prank against Jay Horowitz. Before the game, Jay was up in the tower there, and he's looking down, and we said, wouldn't it be funny if he looks down and doesn't see 12? Jay's eyesight is not great. So I said, what if he looks down and sees 15 and knows that, oh, what happened to Ron? And he did, it happened. He ran down, he was trying to find what happened to me, and he said, he's on the mound. He said, no, 15's on the mound. He said, he switched to 15. So that's the only reason I got.
Thanks so much for being here. You're Mets royalty. This is a great honor for all of us, and glad to hear you're writing the book. The Complete Game is an outstanding read. Tell us why we should be optimistic going into 2014. What do you see?
Why we should be optimistic? We'll all agree the team, okay, other than Harvey, the team is better right now than it was last year. Do we agree? Right? I think so. I think we have some more players. I think we have some guys who can play. So that's one. I also think with Harvey's absence, you might have a guy like Montero make the team. You might have a Syndergaard come up earlier than you think. I think that's a positive, because Syndergaard can pitch, Montero can pitch, so we're going to have enough pitching. The thing that always alarms me is that, you know, people always talk about the Mets pitching in the 80s. It was great. It was fantastic. But, you know, Strawberry played right field, and Carter caught a little bit, and Hernandez occasionally played first. So we had some everyday players that were amazing. So, you know, David Wright is amazing. I think Darnell is going to be a player. I'm the most surprised person that Ike Davis is not great yet. I still believe he's going to be great, but I'm surprised he's not yet. So Granderson's a step up, you know, definitely. I think, you know, I'm optimistic because I think they have better players. I think they have some players that have to get better if they want to stay in the big leagues. Tejada and Davis. I went over some things, and this is, and I hope they come true because I just like him as a person, and I try not to let that shroud what I try to do in the booth, but I was trying to understand what's happening tonight. And I've never really seen it. A guy that, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a super scout. I'm not. I'm certainly not. But God, I hope I know when a player can play or not. You know, I mean, that's part of the job description for me. And I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, boy, you know, you were wrong on Ike. And I said, yeah, I have been, I guess, so far. But I was reading some articles that happened 3 seasons ago, and the player was being written about, saying that he was moody, uncoachable, he had a hitch in his swing that would never, ever be solved, he had an uppercut that was not conducive to hitting the baseball, and went on, not a good person, can't field his position, and all of those things were written about Chris Davis, who now plays for the Baltimore Orioles now. So you have to be patient with young players. I don't see the rush. I mean, it's not exactly like if we look at our ball club and say, you know, we're winning 105 this year. You know, this is a growing time, and a growing time means you have to play people, and you have to stick by people. And I think that the greatest thing that might ever happen to the Mets, and maybe we'll do this 3 years from now, after you guys are coming off an amazing season, hopefully a championship season, is that we'll go, you know what? They didn't trade Ike. Can you imagine if they had traded Ike? I hope we all can say that here someday. That would make me happy. I know it would make Ike happy.
Ron is going to be be signing at the down the way in just a little bit. But first, I want you to please join me in thanking you, Ron,